Hello my dudes, welcome to the second out of 9 videos showing you the difference between the NES and the Amstrad CPC version of Bart vs. the Space Mutants. I will only be talking about the differences in this video, and anything not shown is automatically assumed that it is in the Amstrad version. First of all, there is no music, just sound effects, and believe me, you should be happy that I removed the sound effects because they are extremely loud and really another thing is it's similar to the ZX Spectrum, where this is a like transition by transition kind of game, so you know there is no fluid scrolling and no extra room / dialogue, so I won't be able to show you any unique enemies or use the payphone because the game just does not allow it. Also, it is very similar. You can compare Amstrad CPC to the ZX Spectrum when it comes to like gameplay style, so there's going to be basically everything that was missing in the ZX is also missing in this version. But Amstrad CPC version was released. The only thing I could find was in EU 1991. I want to say it was also like released somewhere between September, if not in that exact same month. But all the information I was getting was just 1991. So even though I'm gonna have EU September 1991, I don't really know that for sure, but this game had to have released after the NES, right? And it wouldn't make sense for it to be released earlier than all the other versions, but I'm sure you guys will let me know. Compare that very little to the other video where I already made, but obviously this will be just the NES and the Amstrad. Hopefully you guys enjoy and have fun. As you can tell, there is actually no intro screen to the Amstrad CPC. You just get the text telling you kind of like what game you're playing, and that's pretty much it. The one thing interesting about this version is the fact that it lets you redefine keys, so I'm assuming the game was played on a keyboard, which is pretty cool. You can tell what buttons do what in order to play the game. So obviously when it comes to controls in the game, you have to, in this case, you hold the jump button in order to run, and then you can also hold the use button, which in this case I'll just give example of the spray can, where you can actually jump and hold the use button, which would be using the spray can, in order to continue running, so you don't have to hold the jump button, kind of like you do with the NES. But other than that, when it comes to just little things, that's pretty much it. I just found it interesting that it has no intro besides the text. But anyways, here we go. This is where things actually start getting interesting. Obviously, as you can tell, the graphics are just heavily downgraded. The sign just says Space Mutants. It doesn't even have an image or anything like that. When it comes to this trash can, you actually appear behind the trash can and not in front of it. You can also instantly spray things, so instead of having to sit there and spray, you can actually just hit it once and it'll automatically be turned to red, which is pretty neat. This is the one thing that I actually love about this game. It has 20 goals instead of 24. As we move on here, what I love about the mutants is it's actually a mutant that's in the sky, and soon you'll see it'll be mutants with hats when you use the X-ray glasses, which is pretty cool. Instead of actually being a mutant. Anyways, here again, the rockets and the cherry bombs are inverted for whatever reason. General, when it comes to graphics, a lot of things are going to be missing. Like for instance, the Mel's Novelty Hut, instead of having a little sign, you actually have a big sign, or like the pets image won't even have pets at all. It'll just be totally gone. In this case, you can buy the magnet, but the magnet is totally useless. does absolutely nothing. As we move on here, it's actually pretty hard to determine whether you've actually hit these potted plants or not. For me playing it for a while, I can actually see the difference whether they turned red from purple or not, but that's probably just because, again, I've been seeing it for so long. Here, the keep off sign, you actually have to hit the keep off sign, which is pretty neat, instead of having a unique enemy come out or just a cop enemy where that you could then spray. You know, you can just hit the sign. Also, you can't, there is no payphone cutscene at all. Here, as you can tell, there is no skateboard cutscene, and there is no skateboard whatsoever, so therefore there is also no 1-up, and they just added a bunch of dogs in turn of a bunch of mutants. Here, the Bolorama, it only says Bolorama, it doesn't even say Barney's Bolorama, no, neither does it have the pins, but it is the entire sign that you can hit, so that's also pretty cool. Here, as you could barely see it, there are no 3 mutants right after the Bolorama, so that's cool as well. Here, there is no E in the Quickie Mart, so there's supposed to be a giant E right here, and there isn't. Like I said, just general things that are just missing. No 3 mutants right next to that first purple drape. Here you can use the key that takes you over to the building on the right side of the payphone instead of Moe's building. If we move on, if you were to buy the whistle actually does absolutely nothing because Grandpa does not come out of this building. I'm assuming for the very same reason of it just couldn't handle it. Here, yeah, as you can tell, you can actually run right past the boss and off to the off screen on the right. And as you can tell, I have Maggie activated, but there is no Maggie, which is kind of weird. So even though you bother to pick up the coins, there is no Maggie there to meet and greet you. You can also instantly kill the boss by spamming the shoot button, which is pretty awesome. Here in the second level, there is 550 seconds instead of 700. There is a coin in the first trash can, which I found pretty interesting. Here we'll see mutants with hats up in the sky, which is pretty neat. I just love how they did the whole mutant thing in this game. Instead of being like humanoid mutants, they just made an actual, the little mutant that comes out of the sky. When you jump on the second platform, it just goes straight. It doesn't matter where you jumped from, it'll just eventually go straight instead of zigzag like it does in the NES. The hat locations in this level have also been a little bit different for some odd reason. I won't be able to point them all out because of how fast the game is played, but yeah, just note that some of the hat locations are different. Also, where it says fruit and veg, it actually says fruit and veg for all 3 floors, which I found pretty funny. And when it comes to the mini boss, you can actually basically instantly kill them. You do damage, but because damage stacks and it doesn't bounce you off of the boss, you can actually just basically instantly kill them. And there is no escalator ride up. You just sort of hit the screen and off you go up. There's also a coin in this first trash can again. As we move on here. Here, if you want to have Marge help you at the boss, quote unquote, you actually have to farm, and you also have to farm hats because there aren't enough hats in this level to actually get you through. So there you just saw me speed that process up. Here you actually have a coin and a hat that comes out of the trash can, which is pretty awesome. There are no hats that come out from the NES. And we move on. There are also less enemies, and here The boots actually shake the entire screen, which I do not like, but they don't stun you, so you can just keep on moving on if you know when to jump. Here, there are 2 hats in this trash can, so there goes 1, there goes 2, and there you'll see them on the ground. And there is the boss that you can also just instantly kill, and there's a coin in that trash can as well. Moving on to floor 3, I'm gonna try and say as much as I possibly can without trying to skip anything. Here, the trash can right next to these 3 mutants right here has been moved. It's supposed to be on the far left, but it's on the far right instead. One last set of box monsters, as I like to call them, just for obvious reasons, I guess you can say. There's the 1-up. There's the hats. Though the mutant also shakes the room. You just keep on trucking. Just keep on trucking. Right here, when it comes to the wands, there's a lot more wands that there are in the NES. There's also no Jebediah head, and there will be no rings. So, I guess the Jebediah head would have been useless anyways. When it comes to this trash can, there is no extra 1-up, so you just sort of have to bypass that entirely, but there is a coin, and that hat above the trash can, the brown one, you can actually pick that up, but it's very difficult to actually pick up. It's pretty much useless. And here, as you can tell, you actually have to have a counter of 0 in order to get to the mini boss instead of getting to the boss, which would be the escalator. And then there you saw me stand on nothing super fast, which also pops out a coin, which is kind of cool. Here is Marge with the boss. It's just her head, and she does absolutely nothing. So even though you spent time farming for Marge in the level, you actually get nothing for it because she does nothing. She's just sort of there, which is weird, I guess. It's a little frustrating, right? It's like actually collecting and bothering to pick up the coins that the mutants drop, but there is absolutely nothing. Also, I forgot to mention, there are no cutscenes whatsoever. You just sort of beat the level and move on. Here, there are 20 goals instead of 40, and also, if you want to farm for Lisa, you actually have to do it in this very first screen. You can't move forward because I'm pretty sure there are no more clowns in this level besides this very first one that actually constantly comes out. It has 550 seconds instead of 400. So there, I'm just speeding up the process of farming for Lisa because it's, again, very annoying. Again, the magnet, you can buy it. I don't know if it actually enters level 3. I never actually tried, but because the magnet's supposed to be used on the roulette table, and there is no roulette table in this game, it's kind of useless. So like I said, never tried. You can play the mini game when it comes to the 3 heads and the balloons, and there, as you can tell, the balloons have been inverted, so it's actually blue red blue instead of red blue red. And when you play the mini game, the balloons don't actually count towards the goal, so you could play the mini game for 5 coins only, but that's pretty much it. Also, there is no guy holding the balloon, and the balloon is moved over to the right, and as you can tell, the exit sign for some reason in this level has a glitched image. Not really sure what that was or even why it happened. Also, Catapult, again in this level, it tells you right in the beginning that you can use the slingshot to get balloons, but the slingshot itself is called a catapult. Not really sure why. You can't go up the ladder, so you just keep on trucking. The floating balloons are blue, while the ground balloons that you just saw me there pick up are actually red, which I found pretty neat. When it comes to the door minigame, you actually need to complete it. There is no time, like X amount of time to clear it like there is in the NES. But as you can tell, I got that very top middle door glitch for some reason, and when that happened is, even though I'm beating the level by opening all the doors, for some reason the minigame itself isn't activating, so you just sort of see me run around trying to beat the level. And as you can tell, I open one set of doors and it always constantly opens up the glitched door, so I'm guessing that's the reason why the minigame never actually cleared itself, which is why you see me run. And because there is no timer, you're kind of screwed. Also, you get 4 balloons as well. These blowpipes, they shoot a damage dart, which kind of sucks. This section right here is pretty much the most difficult section in this entire game when it comes to playing it. No top section of Krusty, neither can you go into his mouth, so you just have to keep on moving. And if you transition here, I'm gonna kill myself right there just to show you that you will die in this hole. But if we go back and we transition there twice, and then you turn left, for some reason you can now step on that hole. But if you move one transition to the continue going left, you'll actually end up dying. And this transition actually doesn't affect the game whatsoever. You can just move on right, and there's the checkpoint. The Ferris wheel does not move in this version, and I'll end up doing the walking in the hole glitch again. But here in the middle cart top section right there, it's a bounce cart for some reason. That little part right there was actually pretty difficult to get a hold of the first time when I was playing this game. You're forced to farm at the very end because there aren't enough balloons in this level to actually beat the level. And there, as you can tell, I shot the little kid in the balloon and he fell, but I shot this second kid and he just sort of just kept on flying, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you have to farm at the end because there aren't enough balloons. And here you wasted your time picking up Lisa, but again, Lisa does not even bother showing up. And what those red lines signify is that's the boss room inside of where Bart is. For some reason, you can't go to the far left or the far right, because here you'll tell that this boss will jump over to the left, and then you jump over there, and then you just sort of get stuck. It's like, well, you just have to wait for the boss to jump back right, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you spent time farming for Lisa, which is only 4 coins, which isn't all that bad, but she doesn't even bother showing up, kind of like Maggie on the very first level, which kind of sucks. Whew. When it comes to the fourth level, again, you have to turn to side B because this game was actually made with tapes. So you have tape 1, you know, the one tape on one side has A side, and the other side has B side. Here, level 5, 550 seconds instead of 300, so you have quite a jump. 5 goals instead of 6. The dart gun actually appears in your UI or your menu, even though you never picked one up, which is a little weird. It's not supposed to do that. And if you wanted to pick up the coins or the Krusty the Clown head, which is the 1-ups, you only have to jump once, which is pretty cool. Here there will be some missing enemies. And as you can tell by my coin counter, anytime you go above 10, for some reason it just glitches, so it'll have like a 0 and a dash, which is kind of funny. When it comes to these gators, as you can tell, I'm standing on the gator, and then the gator stops, and it just like slides Bart forward, which is kind of funny. This part will also take quite a few attempts to finally figure out how to get through, but the way I figured it out was by jumping 3 times. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then you jump right next to the next gator. And there's only 3 gators instead of 4. There's the monkey. You only have to shoot him once and then he dies. Same thing when it comes to the boss. You just shoot the plant boss, which I call him Seymour. And you only have to hit him once with your, you jump on his head and he dies. You can't get some of the exit signs. I'm not sure if I already showed you, just because of how fast this game is going, even though it's not that long. In this little section right here, there's supposed to be one up right. See, some of the lasers also break right there. In that little, like somewhere around this little transition here, but there isn't. Some of the lasers actually end up breaking themselves, and this is one of the exits signs that you can't even pick up. There's like 3 or 4 of them that you can't even pick up, which makes absolutely no sense. These little red platforms, sometimes this right one right there where an exit sign appeared out of nowhere, sometimes won't even appear. And then these blue platforms kind of react kind of like ZX Spectrum, where you can see Bart jumping up and down, or rumbling, however you want to say it. Here, when it comes to the Egyptian section, there is no Onks, so again, like ZX Spectrum, I would call this Kaizo Bart, where they just added extra spikes. And when it comes to the boss, there is no dogs, so you just sort of get to the boss. You only have to hit him once and he's dead. Yay! Okay, when it comes to the volcanoes section, see right there, laser, how it just stops moving? Not really sure why the lasers sometimes don't show up. They sometimes break, or they are moving, they're working just fine, and then all of a sudden they bust. It's just kind of funny. When it comes to the volcano section right here, there is no dust. Well, I mean, that's kind of an obvious. And when it comes to the fossil section, which is right up next, here there are some missing heads, and when it comes to the fossil heads that are supposed to be here, they've actually replaced these with gators, and the gators are facing left, which is kind of weird if you think about it, because it's oil, but somehow the gators are swimming. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, some of the sections are missing, but I mean, I'm assuming that's just because of the PC that just wasn't able to handle it. And also, when it comes to the gators, you can actually stand on the entire gator, unlike the ones in the water where you can only stand on their eyes. And the ones in the fossil, you can stand on their entire face and you won't die, which is awesome. When it comes to the boss, I actually have no idea how many hits he takes, because he just takes way too many. In the NES it's 3, in this version it's like way too many. And one cool thing when it comes to the boss, as soon as I actually arrive, the boss actually looks different, which is always a plus. There's the boss, and there's Homer. And Homer actually does do something. There he is. There you go. You go all the way right, and there's a glitchy ass mess. And as you can tell, I killed the boss, and you actually have to wait for the mutant to fly out of the screen in order to beat the level. Otherwise, you won't be able to beat it. I don't know why the game developers made that entire room, but didn't actually finish it. So if you actually go far right, like you're supposed to, it's just one giant glitchy mess. And when it comes to the final level, the nuclear plant, every elevator takes you to every elevator, kind of like the ZX Spectrum again, where the doors only take you up and down, but the elevators take you everywhere. But unlike the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad CPC version actually, some of the checkpoints are weird. Like, some of the checkpoints you'll actually end up starting where you last exited, and then some of them will wrong warp you all the way to the far left. which is a little bit odd. Also, another cool thing is when you jump up and use the pad, you'll actually fly up, and you can actually go bypass the door entirely, which is kind of cool. When it comes to using the door, the code is the exact same thing, but why would you want to use the code when you can just fly and bypass it entirely? Here it's 550 seconds instead of 900, and you can, when you're going up the stairs, you can take damage if there is a mutant, kind of like in floor 1 right here, going up right next to you. So you actually have to wait for him to shoot up before you go in the door, otherwise you'll take damage and or die, depending if you've already taken damage before. And when it comes to picking up some of the 1-ups like that one, you actually can't even pick it up because the thing right there that's supposed to be solid is not solid, so therefore you can't reach the 1-up. And I think there's 3 1-ups in this level, and 2 of them you can't even grab at all, which is weird because I don't know. I have no idea how you're supposed to pick up the 1-up if you can't reach it to begin with. There's also no Marge, so you have to do all the hand-ins yourself. And I don't know, when it comes to visually, when it comes to the nuclear plant, for the Amstrad, I would actually say that the Amstrad version of the nuclear plant looks way better than the ZX Spectrum, just because of the colors. They're not so strong, I guess you can say. I don't know, I just enjoyed looking at the Amstrad version of the nuclear plant way better than the ZX Spectrum. But pretty much when it comes to this final level, everything is damn near identical to the ZX Spectrum, where you're just running around, you wrong warping by killing yourself to appear at a door or at an elevator faster to go to the basement, because again, every elevator door takes you to every elevator door, so at any point you can go to the basement whenever you want. And it's pretty much, like I said, identical, so there isn't really much to say. So I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about this version in general. And in general, I would place the Amstrad CPC just below the ZX Spectrum, because the physics for this game are actually, again, like the ZX, identical. The physics are just so good, it's crazy. That's pretty much the only other reason why I enjoyed playing this version the most as well, because you can control Bart far better than you could in the NES version. And visually it does not look as interesting as the ZX, but the reason why this one's just as cool is because just how much different it looks. Like, you would think that because it's running on an OS or on a PC, or however way the correct wording would be, that it should look better than the NES, but it doesn't. So it's like, well, yeah. Well, that's a little bit weird. So yeah, when it comes to rating this game, I would actually put it right below the ZX, but don't think that just because it's right below that it's a little bit worse. To me, it's actually pretty much the same. It just fails in a couple of little spots. Obviously I love their rendition of the mutants, so instead of using an entire mutant, they just use one that they've already had in the game. And the only thing hard about this version would be the inside the tent in the circus and trying to get bypassed through the through the museum when it comes to the gators, because it took me a little while to figure out why it was I was dying during the alligator section, even though I was standing on them. Again, when it comes to the water section gators, in the museum, you can only stand on their eyes, but then they have another set of gators in the fossil section where you can stand on their entire body. So it's like, why? It's a little bit weird. Let's see, what else can I possibly talk about? It looks like there isn't much more to talk about, unfortunately. The only thing I can possibly say is at the very end, so you'll hear a little bit more commentary at the end. So for right now, I'll just let the game play out for you guys, so you can just see the differences between the Amstrad and the NES. The only other thing would be, like, you can't actually kill yourself inside of the basement because it doesn't like have the fluid scrolling, so when you die you just sort of stick in the exact same room where you were at instead of spawning you back in. So that's the only reason why, like, the NES allowed you to walk inside of the basement even though you weren't supposed to. But yeah, for now I'm just gonna let it play out, and then I'll be back at the very end and move on from there. okay, when it comes to the very end, Maggie does not activate the final cutscene. You have to, Maggie just gives you the final power rod. And what I love about this version is the fact that Maggie actually looks like a red chili pepper, so I just call her Chili Pepper Maggie. And you have to pick up Maggie in order to reach the end, which I'll be doing right now. And there she is, apparently. So you can obviously go back to door 1 because it's faster to get to the elevator than it would be from the exact same floor where you appear in floor 2. And then when you finally get to the end and it loads, here is the final cutscene that you guys have been looking forward towards, like what you're looking at from the NES currently. Is you beat the game and you get what do you get? What do we get? What kind of awesome cutscene are we gonna get? Congratulations, Bart, you have saved Springfield and the world from being taken over by Space Mutants. Yeah, that's pretty much it. A little bit disappointing. And the other funny part is right here, is as soon as it's over, it says game over as if you died. It's like, well, that kind of sucks. It's like, not only did we beat the game, but we also ended up dying in the process for some reason. And because there is no cutscene, you just get this little cool little text, I guess you can say. It's like, well, that sucks. You get zero explanation, zero reward besides some text, and that's pretty much it. It kind of blows, but you know, that's the Amstrad CPC version. Hope you guys had fun, and hope to see you next time. Peace out.